take a few minutes to explain how to use the GoToWebinar technology. In particular, I am going to show you features that allow us to make our presentation more interactive. You should see the control panel picture on your screen right now. If you don't, it is because it has been minimized and you can pull it back out by going to the Grab tab, which hides and shows the control panel. There is also an attendee list where you can see all of the participants on the call. If you have a question, you can raise your hand by clicking the hand icon on the control panel, and I can unmute your line. Another way to participate is through the control pane. You can type your question in the control pane, and I can read it to the group or respond privately. All panes can be expanded or minimized by clicking the plus or minus button that are on the top left of each pane. In the past, we had some audio trouble. If for some reason you are having difficulty being heard, you will want to make sure that you're not muted on your personal phone and that you have entered the audio pin provided to you at the beginning of the call. If that doesn't work, you can hang up and call back in and be sure to enter the audio pin.
Greetings, everyone. This is Samad Keys from Achieving the Dream, and I just want to welcome everyone to our October Leader College webinar. Today's topic for the October Leader College webinar will be creating successful learning environments for students with mental health and substance abuse issues. And this is a prevalent topic within the community college environment. We're so happy to have Everett Community College here to present on this particular topic. Today, you'll be joined on this webinar by myself, Samad Keys, Associate Director of Programs here at Achieving the Dream, Melanie Mauvais, Assistant Director of Programs, and I would like to also welcome Tran Lee, who is now our new Program Coordinator here at Achieving the Dream. Just to go over the agenda for the webinar, we'll have the presentation by the folks at Everett Community College, once again creating successful learning environments for students with mental health and substance abuse issues. We'll then open up for question and answering and discussion, and then we'll go ahead and highlight or exhibit our next Leader College webinar for the month of November. I just want to take the time to introduce the presenters from Everett Community College. We have Donna Alson, who is the Senior Associate Faculty for Basic and Developmental Education, Gina Myers, Faculty Counselor, Basic and Developmental Education, and Karen Schilde, Instructor in Basic and Developmental Skills. At this time, what I'll do is transfer the screen over to our folks, our colleagues at Everett Community College, and they'll go ahead and proceed forward with their presentation.
Hello, I'm Karen, and the title of our presentation today is Did I Miss the Training? I'm Karen Schilde. I teach English as a second language in what is now called Transitional Studies. In my community volunteer role, I've been teaching classes for NAMI, or NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, at our local hospital for the past 10 years.
Hello, I'm Donna Olson, and I also teach in Transitional Studies. I'm also the founder and currently serve as Executive Director of Take the Next Step, a grassroots nonprofit that works with the homeless and low-income neighbors in an underserved part of our county.
Hi, my name is Gina Myers. I've been a faculty counselor for over 30 years in TRIO programs, the college counseling centers, and transitional studies. I'm a licensed mental health counselor as well as a certified school psychologist. EVCC is now a Leader College. As co-leader of our ATD project, I jumped at the chance to take TRIO to the masses with the ATD initiative. The ATD Kickoff Institute was emotional for me. Advocacy and breaking down the barriers was being articulated by administrators, not just from counselors and teachers.
We heard teachers express their frustration dealing with students and we began to research information and accommodations on how to bridge those disabilities. Here is one of our teachers.
Hi, I'm Tim Langley, and I teach adult basic education here at Everett Community College on a part-time basis. But I want to talk to you about something that happened in my classroom. I had a student who came into my room a week or so ago and tends to come about 40 minutes late to class, and the door burst open in the middle of my lesson, and the student announced, "I'm here," and of course disrupted what I was doing. And I tried to talk calmly. I said, "Go ahead, go to the front or go to your seat and sit down." And so the rest of the students are all waiting patiently, and finally the student sat down, and I began teaching again, and then the student started to distract other people around her and started trying to draw everybody's attention to herself, and I thought, boy, this is kind of odd. How do I deal with this? And so I tried my usual teacher tricks. I walked over calmly and spoke in a very calm voice and said, "Can you please be quiet? We're trying to learn here," and they're focusing on what I'm saying. And then I walked back up front and I started teaching, and a minute later she was back doing bizarre behaviors and drawing everybody's attention to herself. And this felt really strange to me because I understand teenagers. They tend to do things like this, but this is an adult, somebody that's a manager at McDonald's, and I thought, boy, what is going on with this behavior, and how do I deal with somebody that's acting so oddly? And so I kind of wondered, did I miss the seminar or the training?
Many here today may have no memory that access ramps for the disabled have not always existed. Education for Handicapped Children Act, which came ADEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, only began 40 years ago in 1975. We have removed many barriers, but today we will discuss what we see as the most marginalized population, students with mental illness and substance abuse issues. I remember a time when my sister with muscular dystrophy had many kind and caring teachers who advised our family to keep her home with her wheelchair when there were field trips. It was simply too much of a burden for teachers to get her in and out of school buses and over curbs. Now that's unimaginable, that she was actually shut out of classroom doors because she couldn't open them. We have come a long way in removing these physical barriers. We've also made great strides in understanding learning disabilities. An elementary school child I know had reading problems. Every day he sat in the hall because he was unable to take part with his classmates. One teacher who saw him called the parent, asking if she could allow him to write with her during that time, instead of being out in the hall. She encouraged him. Fast forward this year, he graduated with a BA and is now employed. Like that teacher, this workshop was driven by college teachers who believed that they needed to change the instruction so that all students might be successful. Mental illness is perhaps the most misunderstood disability. No longer can we advise them to come back at some future time or send them on to another office. We collaborate with rather than simply refer out to disability services and to counselors. Our message here today is how to change the instructional environment in your classroom. We will share the evidence that these students are already at our colleges, and we hope you can open this discussion on your campus about this population. This isn't just a matter of doing the right thing. In Washington State, our mandate in adult education is no longer just life skills, but transition to college level and work. We need all students to be successful.
I'm really excited to share this information about the number of students, ways we can alter the classroom environment, and examples of how students can be successful. You'll see here on our agenda, we will provide you with data regarding the prevalence of mental illness, community college interventions that include a workshop you can develop on your own campus for your faculty and staff, a teacher toolkit, samples of teacher interventions, and finally we will share success stories. And you can find all of the information from this webinar, including research links and over 180 collected teacher tips and tricks on the blog, which is shown on your screen.
We call this Did I Miss the Training? Because of the many deeply caring teachers who would like to help but felt they never had the training. One of my students with mental illness said, "If I were blind, you'd know what to do with me." Our teachers knew they were lacking when it came to teaching these students, So they created a workshop and a blog of teacher tools to apply universal design for learning.
When we began creating these materials to train teachers, I phoned Dr. Berland, head of education at NAMI, for permission to reprint symptoms and medical side effects from her publications. I asked if she could put us in touch with other community colleges doing similar training for their teachers. In the year 2009, she replied that she knew of no other community colleges doing that.
For many years, other social issues with stigma, like domestic violence and child abuse, had only anecdotes before there were more quantitative statistics to confirm the stories about what was happening. Teachers are on the front lines of these stories, observing their students, referring to counselors like myself when necessary. Reminder that we don't diagnose at the community college, but again, we can be great observers of behavior. I'd like to share a few stories of teachers making observations and revealing that students had hit a barrier while trying to be successful in school. The engaged instructor brought their students to me for a counseling session. Teacher suspected a case of domestic violence because a student was angrily talking about her husband. When I was able to talk privately with her, I found the husband had not been around for 20 years. Yet off her meds, she was hallucinating that he was hurting her. Instead of being a suspected victim, she was suffering from an untreated mental illness. Another student who appeared angry and irritated in class. When he took off his hat in my office, I saw part of his skull was missing. He had experienced a traumatic brain injury and needed to be referred to disability services for accommodations. Another student couldn't remember anything. She had been crying in class. She revealed in a private conversation she had been diagnosed with lupus, but had no medications or help with symptoms for confusion and fatigue.
So as instructors, we have to guard against making assumptions about our students. Who do you think this student is? There's often much more behind our students' situations than we would ever suspect. That young woman is actually a spokesperson for victims of sex trafficking like herself and suffers from PTSD. This man did not party last night and sleep through your class. He just changed antipsychotic medications and cannot stay awake. The woman with headphones does not want to tune you out. She needs other noise to drown out the distracting voices she hears in her brain.
We need to park our assumptions at the door. We all have them. When working with students, I don't judge on appearance or lifestyle choices, but I have to constantly be aware and work on this, to not let my eyes lead my judgments of behavior.
It's true. We cannot diagnose or even guess what's going on with our students. And we certainly cannot solve complex brain disorders, but we can learn about the biomedical aspects of mental illness. It's vital that we understand the role of stress and symptoms. Good and bad stress are all part of our lives. Every day has its stressors. Finding a classroom, finding keys, finding our phone, finding parking. All of these experiences are stressful. We know our students experience fragile lives of great stress. For the majority of us, most of the time, we experience a balance between our own susceptibility or vulnerability to stress. All of us experience illness, fatigue, hunger, poverty, overcrowding, noise, isolation, pessimism, loneliness. But usually we have some protective factors against stress, such as good health, rest, food, income, space, quiet, social contacts, optimism, exercise, friends, and even pets. With protective factors, our stress doesn't become a barrier to meeting short or long-term goals.
Listening to our students, we hear many examples of the stresses which can get in the way of retention and completion. Think of how you too hear these stories from your students.
Transportation and parking, health or accidents for oneself or loved ones, insecure housing, moving, threat of loss of housing, fear, victimization, crime, neighbors, roommates, school failure.
discrimination, family crises, abuse, divorce, custody, and separation, encounters with the justice system, arrest, court appearances, being jailed or released, ankle bracelets, presence of an escort in class for sex offenders, financial, checks stolen, missing or late, or threats of being cut off from support.
Relationship issues, death, accidents, child and elder care, family responsibilities, employment, lack of job, searching, loss, changes, part-time, need for cash, social, isolation, too much partying, anxiety,
drugs and alcohol, smoking, caffeine, trying to quit, staying sober or abstaining, chronic health problems, lack of access, insurance, waiting lists, and remembering that mental health is health, medications, changing, intolerance, adjusting to new, lack of support for education, a pessimistic environment, no mentor, pressure not to further education or independence,
a lack of privacy, noise, conflicts, and space, trauma associated with previous school experiences and lack of success, school supplies, books, and materials, distractions, organizational ability, and attentional issues.
Animals, therapy pets, lost, sick, ate my homework, paperwork, especially with low math and literacy, sense of time, space, and organization, including deadlines, paying bills, forgetting and locating documents. People, rude, cranky, strangers, officials, perceived threats or negativity from students, staff, and teachers. Pressure, feeling rushed, stressed to complete any task with his or her slower processing speed.
Food security, hunger, waiting in line at food banks, inability to take meds prescribed with, after, or before meals. Hygiene, homeless, unable to wash or launder, chronic pain and how a person deals with it, self-esteem.
These stressors increase the likelihood of becoming symptomatic. What causes mental illness? The most common theories about where mental illness comes from involve a two-pronged approach. Some biological factor as the first trigger or stressor, like exposure to virus, genetics, birth, and then sometimes the second trigger or stressor later in the environment. This information on mental illness for instructors is not a common component of graduate courses in education or in our orientation for new college instructors. Here is another of our colleagues.
My name is Omar Mustafa. I'm an ESL instructor at Everett Community College, and today I'm going to talk about one of my students who I had this core, and they came to class and she looked very tired and detached and emotionally not completely there. I tried to talk to her, but the only thing I got back from her was long stares without saying anything back to me, and it was an odd situation, especially in front of the class. Luckily, we have a counselor here, a mental health counselor, and I managed to bring her with the counselor, and we found out that she was dealing with some serious mental and emotional issues. And throughout my training as an instructor, I was never prepared for something like that. So it was an interesting situation. Luckily, we have someone who took care of it.
1/2 to 3/4 of our community college instructors are part-time adjunct. Many commute between jobs at several colleges. Tenure track and full-timers both are concerned and perhaps embarrassed that they do not know what to do, or they receive training on how to handle classroom management issues around brain disorders. Being able to refer concerns at appropriate times can help us all keep healthy boundaries between what the teacher does in the classroom and how I can counsel a student confidentially. Teachers need this so they can teach. As a counselor, I'm not a peer, so I can also provide an ear to instructors with these class management concerns.
How do these numbers look for all Americans? 25% have a mental disorder. 30% abuse alcohol. 9% abuse drugs. However, 22% of the age group of 18 to 25 abuse drugs, and 8% have PTSD.
How do these statistics impact us in a college classroom?
There is a website representing that half of college students are living with mental illness. The website is called Half of Us and includes depression and anxiety. Statistics can numb us to the realities we know. As counselors, we can be blamed for being alarmists and creating crises, but these are our students, whether at a residential traditional university or at a community college. When we first started collecting ATD data, the faculty at our college were surprised to find out that 85% of our students tested below college level. They would say, they act like high school students. We were able to say to them, many of them are developmentally. Therefore, this fact should impact how we teach. I think the statistics for mental illness and substance abuse will be received in the same way. The statistics are very surprising, but knowing the number of students with mental illness issues will change the way we teach.
The updated 2014 National Survey of College Counseling Centers showed that not only was there greater frequency, but that the severity of the disorder is also greater. We believe some reasons could be requirements initiated by agencies in the community to pursue an educational goal. It could be drug courts, welfare, case managers for residential treatment centers, injured, laid off workers in workforce retraining programs, and returning vets. And finally, the more optimistic reason. Since the 1990s, more effective second and third generation antipsychotics are allowing seriously mentally ill to return to their baseline following a break. But some will still experience symptoms because of the episodic nature of their diagnosis. How do these statistics impact us at community colleges?
Community college, as our name suggests, is a part of a greater community. Our students come from all parts of the world as well as our communities. Court systems, housing agencies, treatment programs, case managers, and others send us their clients with the confidence that we will help these students attain an education or find a career. A community college is a place where students can resume their lives, start over, or find their way, even if they've had one or more detours. Students with mental health issues and substance abuse are in our classroom. Knowing about the prevalence of mental health issues on campus, what might an instructor find in their college classroom?
50% of students suffer from mental health issues. This can be depression, anxiety, or other conditions. Given that the highest prevalence of serious mental illnesses strikes persons 18 to 25 years old, this is not surprising. And who of us would not attempt to self-medicate, trying to survive with a brain disorder? The huge overlap on substance abuse and mental illness is dual diagnosis or coexisting disorders. We as teachers might only be able to guess which student might be abusing drugs or alcohol. However, one of our recent programs with a community agency partner required a drug test. So now we know that in that particular class, 19 out of the 20 tested positive for drugs.
1% of the population is schizophrenic.
3% is bipolar.
45% binge drink.
8% suffer from PTSD.
Let's take another look at PTSD. PTSD as self-reported by students. This is not just a picture of a returning vet, but many of our students have experienced trauma of all varieties and suffer from PTSD. Research on the mental health of community college students is woefully lacking. ATD teaches us to create a culture of evidence, to meet the needs of our students. In our department, we do a state intake form to determine students' needs. When I compared data of only 11% declaring a disability, it just didn't match the stories I was hearing in my office from students. We assigned 3 master's degrees in special education to conduct confidential one-on-one interviews and found instead that 51% have a variety of disabilities, including hearing, vision, learning disabilities, medical, ADHD, and mental health. I'm sorry, we were not asking the right questions.
More importantly, how does teaching only a small percentage of students impact our society at large? If I can only work with the unaffected students, how many students will be successful in reaching their academic goals? What if all of these students affected by mental health and substance abuse issues arrived in a single classroom? This was my classroom one spring quarter.
What do teachers need to know to effectively teach students with mental health issues? Here are some behaviors which sometimes can be associated with a brain disorder, such as inappropriate distance from others, changes in energy, mood or attention, incomplete thoughts. More of these are on our blog. How can a teacher know how to interpret these behaviors in adult students?
I had not been trained on how to work with students who have mental health issues or substance abuse issues. Therefore, Karen and I began this journey with Did I Miss the Training? And we tried to better equip ourselves to work with students in class.
Instructors can use these behaviors as clues to utilize one or more intervention. If the ATD data that 85% of our students test at below college level changed how we teach, how should this information about mental illness change how we teach?
Let's review what a class could look like. The statistics are startling, aren't they? Our first intervention was to develop a workshop to train faculty and staff. We've offered the Did I Miss the Training workshop a few times on our own campus, and we've been asked to share about our interventions at several conferences. We would like to share our template to build a training workshop with you. At your college, you can create a similar training for your faculty and your staff. We found that resources from 4 different sources as we built our workshop. We used campus resources, colleagues as partners, community resources, and what we felt was the most important, the voice of our students describing what helped them the most.
From our campus, we discussed behavior intervention teams, disability office, the vet center, counselors, security, release of information forms, confidentiality forms, FERPA, codes of student rights and responsibilities, student government support groups such as NAMI on campus, Strength of Us, Active Minds, Bring Change to Mind.
From the community, resources from any of the following can be used. Consulting with county designated mental health professionals, mental health treatment facilities, mental health first aid for adults, hospital ERs, crisis lines, counselors, therapists, certified peer therapists, dependency counselor, AA, SA, NA, Smart Health, interns from schools, grad schools, and abuse certification programs. Our typical workshop looks like this template. Educators know how to look for low and no-cost resources. Mental health is such a mysterious subject. In our workshop, we compared mental illness to more familiar physical illness spectrums such as sniffles progressing to a cold, to flu, to pneumonia, or the comparable spectrum with respect to mental illness might look like a progression from a bad hair day to the blues, to depression, to clinical depression to bipolar disorder. In our workshops, we gathered at small tables containing photos of famous persons with mental illnesses along with insightful cartoons. We used crayons to express some ideas with art. We invited guest presenters from our local mental health service and a university professor whose specialty was alcohol dependence. Our other speakers gave overviews of campus resources, followed by the most popular and inspiring, testimonials from students who had alcohol and substance abuse issues and shared what helped or hindered them in their classes.
We know we cannot fix a painfully broken national mental health care system. However, we know that students with mental health and substance abuse issues are in our classrooms. So what can teachers do immediately to begin to reduce stress in the classroom and help foster student success? We created also the teacher toolkit, and as we said, those materials are on our blog. In the teacher toolkit, listed under teacher tips on our blog, we've categorized interventions into two divisions, external and internal interventions. Universal Design for Learning tells us that many may benefit from these simple interventions and not just students with mental health issues. Just as the curb cutout can break down a barrier for the wheelchair-bound person, a mom with a stroller and the teacher with a rolling cart will benefit from that modification. Teacher interventions in the teacher toolkit can also be effective with other students with different learning barriers. Universal Design tells us one accommodation can work for others who were not the original target of the modification.
We all want to see success, momentum, retention, graduation. However, that also means that colleges have the same high stakes teaching as our K through 12. These high stakes add to the pressure teachers are already under in colleges to document their students' progress. The stress can be passed onto already fragile students. Community college is a real college. Financial aid is a contract forever. Grades follow you to the grave, and attendance in many classes is mandatory. Counselors are another critical intervention. The 2014 National Survey of College Counseling Centers reported that 65% of students reported that counseling has helped them stay enrolled in their institution. Also, 64% found that counseling helped improve their academic performance. Another story. This student had attended our college before and had not been successful, although she was getting the care and support from her family and teacher. She was very ill, but nobody knew it was an illness, a mental illness. It was the wall that blocked her academic progress. Her illness landed her in the ER, and after that episode, she figured she was healed and could jump right back into school. She came back to school to get paperwork and new teachers and not for a counseling moment. She came back because she felt she was ready to get back to school. She did not fully understand the ramifications of how her illness and how it could affect her education and life forever. No one had helped her understand her illness, the need to rest and recover, and what the college could actually provide for accommodations. We spoke many times before she officially came back to school. I suggested she wait a quarter and come back when a case manager could monitor her medication and her progress. She eventually came back with more understanding of her illness, her strengths, and her weaknesses, how important her medications were to her success, and how we at Everett Community College could support her in her educational journey. Those of you watching today who are teachers are folks who really care about your students. I know that you care so much that you take on unpaid jobs as counselors, case managers, and occupational therapists, which you shouldn't have to do. Teachers are not trained in mental illness or substance abuse. One of the keys in a more ideal system is to have a counselor who can talk confidentially with students outside the classroom. These are the same students who don't listen to their teachers or to their families, but they do interact differently with a professional counselor. I can be an ally to the teacher and to the student.
The highlight of our trainings came from a panel of students who shared what their teachers had done to help them continue with school until they reached their educational goals. All 4 of those students had mental health and or substance abuse issues, and after 9 years later, by 9 years later, they had all graduated with a 4-year university degree, and one student even had his master's degree. We wish we had those students with us today, but I would like to bring you the story of one student's success, and I'd like to introduce you to Janice. Some of you might be aware of adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. These are experiences of abuse, neglect, and dysfunction, which can be measured by a survey. Janice had a very traumatic childhood, which earned her a 10 on the ACEs scale of 1 to 10. This is one score no one wants to have a perfect 10. Janice dropped out of school in 8th grade. She was suffering from PTSD and anxiety because of her traumatic childhood. She married young and had 3 children, plus she raised an orphaned nephew. She came to Everett Community College classes and earned her GED. Next, she earned her AA degree at our college. Eventually, Janice earned a BA in Human Services through Western Washington University held on the Everett campus. I asked Janice what teachers can do to help fragile students be successful, and here's what she said. Some teachers allowed me to step out of the classroom and get some fresh air when I felt anxious. Having a little feedback, positive feedback in my life, I was very encouraged when instructors valued my academic work and complimented me. I really benefited from counselors who were accessible, capable, and understanding. I told some of my caring teachers about my situation, and it was helpful when they were sensitive and thoughtful. Once I did a project that allowed me to look at who I had become and the factors who made me who I am. It was revealing, and I was more comfortable with myself after that. It was good for me to get to know other students in my classes, and I greatly appreciated teachers who fostered a sense of community in their classes. Working with a cohort of students was a huge support to my academic studies. Finding support among peers is valuable. The social experiences like potlucks were fun and built support within student relationships. Today, Janice is the agency drop-in center that serves homeless and low-income populations. Janice emphasized that it was not helpful when teachers acted on assumptions, observing a behavior and acting on their assumption. One day, Janice asked a classmate a question about what she had missed when she had stepped out for fresh air. The teacher asked Janice to change seats, and she never went back to that class again.
We all understand that this may be very overwhelming to an instructor. We are just suggesting adding another lens to view and respond to puzzling student behavior and direct them to appropriate resources if necessary. So many teachers say to me, I don't know how to begin what could be a very difficult conversation. Here are some role plays on how to initiate simple interventions without crossing boundaries. Here's an example of a teacher initiating a conversation after an observation. The teacher begins.
Can we talk out in the hall? How is this class going for you?
Yeah, it's fine.
I noticed that you don't put any of your materials on the desk.
Yeah, well, I don't like putting things where other people have their stuff. It's kind of dirty, you know?
What do you do at home to help?
Well, I like to wash my hands and I like clean places.
Would you be more comfortable if you could clean it with yourself with some wipes?
Well, yeah, that might work.
And if you feel the need to wash your hands, could you give me a little wave or signal? It'd be great if you can communicate your needs to me.
Here's an example of a student initiating concern. The student begins.
I can't take my test. I have too much going on in my head.
Could we talk out in the hall, please? How is this class going for you?
Fine.
I heard you say that you have a lot going on in your head. Can you tell me more about that?
Well, see, I have new meds, and I can't sleep at night, but then I get tired in the day and my...
Whoa, your life sounds really complicated. Do you know, we have a wonderful counselor here in our department. Would you like to make an appointment with her? I can help you. You can describe what you're going through, and I suspect she might have some tips for helping you to stay caught up in class.
Our goal is successful students, and small interventions can make a big difference.
So if this topic interests you, what can your next action steps be? We knew we couldn't change social systems. We found low-cost or free elements from our own campus and in our community and created our own staff faculty training. We collected over 200 practical tips from teachers to share with each other on our teacher toolkit on our blog, and you can take these steps too. You're free to use this template to replicate our 6-hour workshop. Do you mentor or advise graduate students? Are you yourself working on an advanced degree? There's a huge need to research community college students with mental health and substance abuse issues. Can you combine data with anecdotes to present to administrators and boards of trustees? Can you present on this topic next year at ATD? So we hope that you saw today evidence that students with mental health and substance abuse are on our campuses, and they will continue to be in our classes. We hope you now have some ideas on how to better prepare your faculty and staff to work with these students. You can provide training through a workshop. Teachers can use simple interventions to assist fragile students. And we know that with a little understanding and direction to resources, students with mental health and substance abuse issues can be successful. Thank you.
Thank you all from Everett Community College for this very riveting presentation. I want to now open up the floor for some question and answering. If anyone has questions, we encourage you to go ahead and enter the questions in the question panel on the side of your screen or wherever it may sit on your screen. However, we encourage you to type in your questions and we'll go ahead and forward the questions to the participants. So one of the questions that we have is, how did you begin to get the buy-in to put together these resources at your institution?
Good question.
That's an excellent question. Yeah. As we mentioned, the impetus for it really came from teachers who, as the title of our workshop says, they said, did I miss some of this training somewhere? What can I do about bizarre, mystifying, puzzling student behaviors in my classroom? We also sought out a faculty development grant to give a workshop which covered some of the honoraria for our speakers and some door prizes and some of the materials used during the workshop.
We held that workshop during our opening week where many training workshops were used. I want to say again that the beauty of this is that it was teacher driven. Counselors have many confidentiality rules and ethics about sharing information about students. So it's really the beauty of this is it's teacher driven.
Another question we have is, where did you get the statistics for the percentiles of mental health issues, substance and abuse, and PTSD issues, etc.?
All of the sources for that are listed under our research links on our blog, and they include National Alliance on Mental Illness, National Institute of Mental Health, and some of the more specific college counseling system surveys, the last of which was done in 2014.
Those are all found on the ATD 2015 tab on our blog.
And we'll be sure to share that information with you all as well. Another question we have is, when do you offer 6-hour faculty training that you can get them to come to? Afternoons, evenings, Saturdays?
We had offered this during the day. The first one that we offered was so popular that we had a request to add more information about the substance abuse alcohol portion. We have given pay to part-time faculty for attending the workshop, and otherwise full-time it was considered part of the options that they had during opening week and in one case during the quarter.
Okay, are there any other questions? So one of the questions we have is, where can one begin to put together or research these issues to put together a bigger plan on their campuses?
Well, it is part of a larger picture that when we were doing our research, and we appreciate the fact that ATD does emphasize data, that we found, yes, there was some information on four-year residential colleges, which tend to have the age group of 18 to 25, and also, therefore, according to that 2014 College Counselor Survey, more access to both diagnosticians and therapists. But the community colleges, because of the broader age group and being more of an area where adults who are working are also attending and not just the 18 to 25-year-olds, has an entirely different situation, which we think has an even higher rate. But we are waiting for more confirmation and better research on some of those issues. We would love to see more specific issues on community colleges.
Okay. Another question we have is, did you find that faculty were generally willing to make allowances for this population once they were aware of the issues?
Absolutely. I'm the counselor in the program, and I have many teachers coming to me to consult on student issues, and very concerned that they don't know actually what to do. So they're very much interested and very much involved in this whole process.
And this is Karen, just adding that when some of the information on learning disabilities in adults became well known 25, 30 years ago, many people said, too, one more thing I have to consider. But we very much embrace the idea of universal design, in that if you create an accommodation for one specific population, it will be benefiting others who weren't the original target of the intervention or accommodation.
Okay. Another question is there a suggested ratio of number of students enrolled in a community college to a number of employed counselors?
Oh, my Lord. I don't know where to start on that one. The ratio is completely out of control. As budgets are tight, positions get cut. I don't know really what else to say about that. Counseling's had a roller coaster ride as far as services that can be offered on campuses. So it's something we need to work on. We have to work on a better ratio. Right now in my division, I have over 2,000 students, so I guess that's a 1 to 2,000 ratio.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you
So
all.
we have,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
yes, this is Karen. We have found that in comparing to instructors in the mainstream campus, we feel that within, whether it's called transitional studies, developmental ed, adult basic skills, that we probably have more persons dealing with this issue, but we don't have strong research. And that's where we also feel the need for counseling is even more dramatic in this particular department.
Okay, well, I want to once again thank you all for presenting on this topic. I would also like to take this time to acknowledge ATD's President and CEO, Dr. Karen Stout, who joined us for the presentation. I'm not sure if she has any words that she'd like to add.
I want to thank Everett Community College for taking the leadership to help ATD share this message with your best practices. I just got here late from a yoga class, so I'm working on my own mental health issues, and we know it's very important to help our students as well. And I think that the observation about the advisor ratio and how we're deploying counselors on our campuses is really an important one. And I'm hoping that Achieving the Dream, through our Dream Conference and other upcoming events, we'll begin talking more about some of the leading work in that area in trying to extend services in a climate with declining resources. It is indeed a real challenge, and in addition, our students are coming to us with more and more challenges. So I would just want to thank those that joined in and hope that you'll continue to participate in our webinar series.
Thank you. Just a bit of housekeeping. For those on the call. Our next Leader College webinar will be held on Thursday, November 5th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The topic for this webinar will be increasing adjunct faculty's engagement in college completion work with Lorraine Community College as our presenter. We encourage you all to register for this webinar. Just another bit, we've now opened up our Leader College webinar series to our network because we think that most of the information that we're presenting is relevant to many of the colleges that we're working with, not just Leader colleges. So we encourage all network colleges to log in and attend these monthly webinars on some very riveting topics. Now I want to go ahead and pass the baton over to Tran, who will then go ahead and proceed forward with the poll.
Please select all statements with which you agree. This call was useful and informative. I enjoyed the webinar format. This webinar gave me new ideas that could implement. There was enough time for questions and discussion. This call did not meet my expectations.
And just for the record, this information will help us in forming future webinars to make sure that we're meeting your expectations and that we can develop a stronger webinar series as we move forward with this. All right. All right, we're almost at 100%. Okay, 73. I know there's someone sitting there contemplating clicking a button. All right, there you have it. So we're going to close the poll now, and we'll share the results with you all. As you can see, 85% of you felt that this call was very useful and informative. 69% enjoyed the webinar format. 59% felt that this webinar gave me new ideas to implement on your campus, and 83% felt that there was enough information and time for question and answering. We had some 10% that felt that we could strengthen this, and there's always room for improvement. So we really appreciate your feedback. And if you have any direct feedback that you'd like to share, I encourage you to email me at skeys@achievingthedream, and we can discuss this a little bit more. All right. Once again, I'd like to thank Everett Community College for participating in this webinar as a panelist, and I'd like to thank everyone who signed on to attend. We look forward to seeing you next month at our webinar. Everyone have a great day.